some people will sit there and say, well, you got, it's going to take you time. Well, yeah, you're right. It is going to take time, but I don't have time to sit back and wait until some of these things take care of themselves. We got to have a plan from day one going in the door. What are we going to do?
You're listening to Peachtree Corners Life, a weekly online radio show sharing ideas, opinions, and news about the city of Peachtree Corners. Now, your host, Rico Figliolini.
Hi, everyone. This is Rico Figliolini, host of Peachtree Corners Life here in the city of Peachtree Corners. I have a special guest today, but before we get to him, I want to say thank you to Atlanta Tech Park for being a sponsor of this podcast. We're here in Atlanta Tech Park in the city of Peachtree Corners. They're like, think of them as an accelerator or an incubator. There's about 70 companies that work out of this location, all high-tech, innovative type companies. And we're right on the Technology Parkway, which is Curiosity Lab at Peachtree Corners, which is also another big thing that's going on here. 5G technology driven through Sprint, mobile technology, IoT, the Internet of Everything. This is just a great place for any company to be situated in this area and to be able to work with a lot of other innovative companies. Our lead sponsor is Hargrave Fiber. They are a business that crafts customized solutions for hundreds of businesses in the Southeast, and they deal with small businesses that are looking for affordable bundled services, as well as enterprise-level businesses looking for a full suite of managed IT services. Hargrave Fiber customizes their solution that works best for your business. So they're new to Peachtree Corners. They're opening up in other cities. They work B2B, business to business. And if you're looking for a local fiber cable company to do your internet, your voice and TV solutions, this is a company that works on a local basis, but is in the Southeast. So now that we've done that, let me introduce our guest today, Kibo Taylor. Hey, Kibo.
Good morning. Good evening.
Good evening, yes. Well, depending on when you're listening to this. But Kibo here is running. He's a Democrat?
I'm a Democrat. Right? That's correct.
We're not hiding from that, so we're good.
Not at all.
That's a good thing. So you're running for Gwinnett County Sheriff, right?
That's correct.
Excellent. So the whole idea of this podcast is to be able to know a little bit more about Kibo, about what a Gwinnett Sheriff does, what you expect to do out of it, and to also find out a little bit about your philosophy. So why don't you tell us a little bit who you are and what...
Sure. Again, my name is Kibo Taylor. I always like to start out with the fact that I am a lifelong resident of Gwinnett County. One of the few that was actually born here in Lawrenceville, Georgia, back when we had the old Button Gwinnett Hospital. So that dates me up just a little bit about how old I am. I've lived here in Lawrenceville, other than just a short period of time here there is for school, but I've lived here in Lawrenceville practically my whole life. Started with the Gwinnett County Police Department when I was 23 years old, fresh out of school. Worked there for 26 years, had a very colorful career, I would say. Great career. Wouldn't change anything about it for the world. I retired from the Gwinnett County Police Department back in 2009. Okay. But while I was there, I had the opportunity to work 14 years of the 26 years I was there. I spent them in special investigations, where I worked everything from, narcotics type crimes, organized type crimes, things such as that. And got to spend some time as the narcotics unit commander there as a lieutenant, and then I retired as a major out of one of the precincts. But I also retired as the first and only at that time highest ranking African American in the history of the Gwinnett County Police Department.
In a police department that really is not. Maybe today it is, but it wasn't too diverse back then, was it?
No, it wasn't. The diversity, I don't remember us having any Hispanics there or Asian officers at that time. There were 3 other African-American officers that was there with the police department at the time that I was hired on. So when I started, we had a total of 6.
Out of...
Probably at that time, we were probably about 150, 150, maybe 200 men department.
Men. Women came later, I guess.
They had women, yeah. I'm not trying to be one-sided with it, but 200. It was probably between 150, 200 sworn officers that was there.
Cool. And you said you went to Central Gwinnett High?
I graduated from Central Gwinnett High School here in Lawrenceville.
Yeah. Cool. And your wife? Linda?
My wife, Linda, she is from Decula.
Okay.
Interesting story about her. I met her in the first grade.
First grade, really?
In the first grade, that's correct. Wow. That was before they had actually integrated the school system here in Gwinnett County. So we all started school in the first grade at Hooper Renwick School, which is in Lawrenceville. So she was bussed over from Decula, and of course Hooper Renwick is in Lawrenceville, and that's where I actually.
They brought your wife right to you.
Brought her to me.
And you didn't realize
little did I know in the first grade that that's how it would be.
Wow! And you have 2 children.
We have 2 kids, Keisha and Justin, and my daughter-in-law, which is also my daughter, Christina.
Cool.
And they have 2 kids, and we're looking for a third one to be on the way here soon.
You're looking. I'm assuming they're looking also, right?
They're looking also. That's correct.
That's cool. It's good to have. I'm waiting for. I won't have grandkids for a while. I think kids keep telling me they're not going to have kids. So
I've heard that.
Really?
Hey, but let me tell you how quickly it changed. I heard that too, and then the next thing I heard when he got married, they came in and they told me they wanted 5 kids.
5.
I said, okay. I was hoping for 3, but
yes,
let's see how 5 comes out for you. But if you give me 5 and bless me with 5, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I'm looking for the shooting for the moon. And
let me tell you, they keep you young though. Yeah.
And they're the ones that you really want to protect too.
That's correct. One of them, Kristen, I call him my co-campaign manager.
Really?
If you ever go onto my Facebook, you see pictures where we had the King's Day parade back here this past Monday, and he was out with me, and
that's cool.
and I think he had more fun than just about everybody else out there. But he got to ride in the car, got out of the car, passed out, hand out lists and things such as that. But we had a great time.
That's a great way to bond with kids.
Let me tell you, it is. It really is.
And your educational background, just to tally through some of the stuff, your background.
Sure.
You went to Mercer University?
I got my undergrad at Mercer, criminal justice. Got my master's degree from Columbus State University in public administration.
Cool. And
may I also say something else too?
Please go ahead.
Yeah,
it's a conversation. I don't want to just be.
Yeah, I always like to throw a couple of other things in.
Yeah.
I'm a proud graduate of the Georgia Command College, class number 10.
Okay.
And also the DEA Drug Commanders Academy out of Washington. So.
A lot of experience, that's for sure.
Thank you.
And a lot of street experience, I imagine, too.
Oh, I spent 9 years as an investigator. 9 of those 14 years was actually working cases. So.
Oh, wow. And I imagine the stories you can tell from doing that. Now, you have, did you play football?
I did.
You did. Did you enjoy playing football? I mean, that was a while ago, so it's not like people worry about concussions now and stuff. But...
I tell people back in the old days when I played, and I'm dating myself again, when you came off the field, if you didn't have that transfer of paint onto your helmet, that was a sign that you didn't do anything.
Really?
So, the more paint that you had from your opponent's helmet onto yours, it showed that you had a better game. So, but no, we didn't really... worry too much about that back at the time, but let me tell you what it did for me. Of course, I enjoy playing, and I'm dealing with bad knees and backs and hips and everything else now. Yeah, but what it did for me was right out of high school, they had started an 8th grade program here in Gwinnett County, and I get a call from a guy one day by the name of Dick Hodges, and he called me up and told me, he said, look, I just got your information from your head coach over at the high school, Tally Johnson. This is right after I graduated, and I'm like, okay, what is this about? He said, I want you to come on and coach football with me. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me, because I felt like I said, when I was playing football, I couldn't even hardly remember the plays out there. You'd be so nervous out there on the field. But
sure.
But let me tell you, it was the start of something very profound in my life. I started coaching on the 8th grade staff with this guy. And I've coached, Little League football in high school off and on since 1979. Any time that I had the opportunity between that to actually get out there and be involved, with these kids, with these youth, I've done it. So, sometimes I look at it as my ministry. Sometimes I look at it as just my calling.
Have you found kids changing over the years? The fact that you've done it so long, have you found that the attitudes changing a little bit?
Oh yes. I've coached kids of kids that I coached. In a couple of situations, I've had the grandkids of a player that I've had.
Yeah, you're really good.
Yeah, I am just a little bit here, but the thing of it is that you do see there's been a change, and that the one thing that is constant in life is change. From generation to generation with these kids, you have to be, an agent of change is what I call it. I don't know what anybody else would call it, but, you have to help people through change. Yeah. And you have to be willing to change and modify what you do yourself. I know that some of my tactics out there, I coached this last year, and I coached an 11-year-old group. And one thing that I noticed is that, I really, had to start to change my ways too, and I've always been a little resistant to change. But this past year I coached with my son, and he was more the easygoing guy. Right. And I was still that, the one that was, that tough old gruff guy out there. But let me tell you, when those kids, man, they show you so much love. And that's the one thing that I've seen that it's more so today than it was when I first started. They require more. They require more love, and they're not ashamed or reluctant to show you back love. It's you come into practice. Hey, coach, how you doing? How was your day today? And they would ask you how your day was, and I don't know if they were doing it just because their parents had told them that was a good thing to do.
I'm sure you would figure that out.
Yeah, but some of them, it's legitimate. It's like they cared about you, and how you were doing. Short story, and I know I'm getting off on a lot. We got a long way to go, but I was having some bad knee problems out there. And I was coaching with a cane this last year, and they would come, how you feeling today, coach? How's your knee? It's like, it hurts, man. Can't you see me out here? You see me, walking and limping out here, it hurts. But probably one of the best experiences I've had with that.
It's a good thing they didn't tackle you on the field. That would have been bad. So let's go down that a little bit, because you've been to countless churches, missions, and pastors have endorsed you.
That's correct.
So, big question. I come from Brooklyn. I'm a Brooklyn Italian Catholic. Came down to the South, became born again Christian.
Okay.
Reagan Democrat or Reagan. I don't know. Although I'm not Republican right now.
Okay.
I'm an agnostic to some degree, and I will choose my poisons better.
Gotcha.
But faith. Especially in the South, I find faith drives a lot of things. So how does faith work for you in what you're doing?
I am very strong in my faith. I was raised Baptist. We kid about the fact that when I was coming up, man, we spend some days on Sundays all day in church, Yes. But it's your foundation. And one thing that... no matter where I've been, whatever's going on with me, my faith has always been what has guided me, sustained me, lifted me up. brought me through some things, man, that I didn't think I was going to be able to get through. Yeah. I always tell the story that when it was left up to me, I could really put myself on a bad path.
We all feel the same sometimes.
But but I also knew too that it was my faith that brought me back.
Yeah.
So when I got started with this, one thing that we talked about when we were, sitting around talking about what does this look like? What is it that we're trying to get accomplished? And no matter where we went, whatever we did, who we talked to, it always came back to how you connect with the community. And what I've always known, man, is the people that have their ear to the ground, that knows what's going on in the community, that can connect with the community, is your faith-based leaders. So we set it up to where we reached out to
some of the individual pastors.
Most of a lot of the individual pastors cross faith, and when we would talk to them and ask them, what is important to them. I didn't go in there telling them, what was important to me.
Right.
I asked what was important to them. And almost to the man or woman, it always came back to it was how law enforcement interacted with the community. Especially out there in parts of the community that never saw law enforcement unless they were coming in, for a negative reason.
Sure.
So that's what we did is we talked about partnershiping in with, faith-based leaders. I gave them my word that, when I win, that this partnership won't stop. We'll continue to have these conversations and make sure that, that I'm doing my part from the sheriff's department to make sure that, we give a better light or a more positive light of law enforcement.
So let's go down that road a little bit, because most people might not realize what a sheriff really does. So why don't you help us out a little bit? So as far as what's the difference, let's go through this fairly quick just to educate a little bit. What's the difference between a sheriff and a police chief, or sheriffs and police?
Okay. Police chiefs, most of all of your police departments here in the state of Georgia is mandated by either a council or a commission. Here in Gwinnett County, they're mandated by they answer to the Gwinnett County Board of Commissioners.
Okay.
So the police chief is actually hired by the Board of Commissioners, and their function is for law enforcement, investigative.
Felonies, murders,
just whatever. Right. Yeah, investigating all types of crimes, traffic control.
Okay.
Answering calls, responding to accidents, that type of thing. The Sheriff's Department is a constitutional position. Okay, and basically what the mandate of the sheriff is to run the jail. Okay, secure the courts, and to serve warrants and civil papers. Those are the main functions of the sheriff. But one thing about it is that the sheriff has a lot of other discretions of other things that you can do outside of those mandates, providing that your budget and your manpower, allows or permits you to do it. Yes.
Okay. We, as far as the boundaries of a sheriff's jurisdiction would be what? Well, I mean, you've already stated it.
Yeah, statewide.
Statewide.
That's correct.
Qualifications to be a sheriff?
You have to be post-certified, I believe, or get your post-certification within a certain time period of you being elected.
Okay.
You have to go through the process, your record. You can't have felonies or, those type of things.
Right.
Then you go through the election process, and if you're elected, then there's some other training that you're mandated to go through.
All right. Let's get back to a little bit to why you chose that you want to. I mean, you're retired, you're doing football. I mean, your life could be a little easier. Why do you want to be sheriff?
When you go back to talking about faith-based, I think I've been moved in this direction for a long time, and I didn't even know I was being moved in this direction. It's just, you're kind of navigating through life. I was happy. I was happily retired. Got to do some things that I'd always wanted to do. Try coaching football at a higher level, at a more of a professional level.
Okay.
We own a fitness business on the side too, so I got to dibble and dabble in a whole lot of different things. Fished a lot, but what I was seeing saw some things taking place. Started, I believe I would say that it started with the Trayvon Martin shooting. Okay,
yes.
So social media drove some people out to make a lot of different comments about some things, and what I was seeing was people that was in law enforcement that was making statements and taking on a particular attitude that I just knew for a fact that that's not the position that a law enforcement officer should be taking. Sheriff Conway made a statement, and I think he called, made a statement about Black Lives Matter as being a terrorist group. So he and I had a conversation about it, and I was just like, look, you're the sitting sheriff. If that is your thoughts, then that's your thoughts. But, you're the sheriff for everybody in this community. And, making statements like that is not helpful to what this situation is what it calls for. So back in 2016, we were having more and more incidents that were starting to come out. And I was very vocal, about some things, very critical about some positions that I felt like law enforcement was taking. And it wasn't just because of that. It was just things that I was seeing and hearing, from people that held those positions. And I'm like, that's not what this is about, right. So what I did was I organized a prayer vigil up at the courthouse. This was in July of 2016. And what we did was we brought in, clergy, faith-based leaders, law enforcement, and we got them together. We did a prayer vigil up at the court, up at the Justice and Administrations on the grounds there. And what we did was after they prayed for each other, we took that opportunity for everybody to meet a police officer, and what was profound about it was, I knew some people, man, they brought their kids up there. And they were telling me, hey, look, my kid is afraid of the police. I said, well, this is an opportunity. And they got to see these police officers for who and what they really were. There are people every day out here trying to do a job, just trying to get home to their families, and they were wanting to do the right thing. So from that, and I know that that's a long answer, but when you ask me, that was the beginning of it for me. And it wasn't until maybe about December, January, people were approaching me about running. And I finally made up my mind around about January that, that I would do it. So here we are.
And it takes a lot of steps, obviously. I think family and consideration with the family and stuff. Right?
It does. You have to have the support of your family.
Yes, more before anyone else's endorsement.
That's correct.
It's a crowded field.
Yes, it is.
So, being that it's a crowded field, what differentiates you from the rest of that field?
Well, all of my opponents bring certain things to the table, in terms of education, in terms of experience. What makes me different is my connections with Gwinnett County. Okay, my roots are here in Gwinnett County. The things that I've done outside of law enforcement is what sets me apart. I can work across the aisles with Republicans, Democrats, anybody, all social groups, racial groups. I just have that experience that, with what I have done and, the connections that I've made, it just makes me what I believe to be the stronger of the best candidate. And, when we talk about, all of us talk about similar things. So what we want to try to get accomplished out here. but you have to be able to build those relationships, maintain those relationships, and have the confidence of the people that you're trying to build these relationships with if you're going to be successful out here.
For sure. So you do have a lot of candidates out there running, and everyone has different issues that's their issue, if you will, to a degree. You've been talking a little bit more about collaborating with the DA, the police departments on using existing task force, not necessarily creating new ones, but collaborating with them on their task force with violent crime. But you've also mentioned mental health.
May I add something to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not opposed to creating new task force.
Okay.
As I stated earlier, I was the commander of the drug task force, so I understand the importance of task forces. And what I didn't mention was that I was also assigned to the FBI drug task force, for a period of time. So I understand the importance of task force, and if we're going to get some other things accomplished, when you don't have, the manpower, if you don't have, the funding, task forces are the ways to go.
And the sheriff's department can work with them.
I'd already said that long before I hear now that the governor is talking about human trafficking.
Right.
But when I first started this, I talked about taking people that are participating in the 287G program now, taking them out of that program and assigning them to, any type of federal task force or local task force that deals with human trafficking.
And 287G, for those people that may not know, has to deal with the ICE. Taking illegals off the street, arresting them, and essentially you're doing local police doing ICE work without getting paid for it, but using local police to be able to do federal work.
That's correct.
Which causes problems also locally. I mean, I know some people say, well, they're illegal, they should be removed, but 12 million illegal aliens in the United States. I mean, they're not all going to be shipped home. No matter how anyone looks at that, it's just never going to happen like that.
It's not going to happen.
Right. And they're a big part of not only the economy, but of our community. You were talking about seeking, I'm sure there were kids that may have been from illegal parents that were playing football, that you might have dealt with.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There are people, right? Life.
Yes, and some of the kids, I didn't even know that they were coming from illegal parents, situations like that, until I got into this race. Some of the best kids that I had, that their parents had, came here and they were not documented here. Yeah. And I've spoken to some of them and they talk about how the hardship of it was. I didn't even know it. I had gone on back to doing my own little thing and, didn't even know what those situations was really about. But basically, immigration is a federal law. It's a federal issue. And, so when people talk about, well, you don't want to enforce the law, it's not that I don't want to enforce the law. I'm going to enforce what is mandated by the state of Georgia. And that is not mandated by the state of Georgia. That's an agreement that the current sheriff, Butch Conway, entered into with ICE.
And that's also a volunteer agreement, right?
Yes, it is.
Right. So we don't have to. The Sheriff's Department does not have to enter that. They're not forced to enter that. They chose to enter that agreement.
You look at, I think, at last count, there was 90 agencies in the nation that participated in 287G.
Really? That's it?
90.
What agencies or counties? Or?
Agencies.
Agencies. Okay.
90 agencies, and 3 of them that I'm familiar with is here in the state of Georgia, maybe more. I had heard that there was as many as 5, but I can, tell you of 3. Okay. So that tells you that it's not a mandated thing.
Right.
It's an agreement by choice. And
that doesn't stop. If the police arrest or you serve and you arrest an illegal that committed a felony, they will be deported. I mean, that's just the nature of they will. We're not talking about felons necessarily. The majority of who's picked up are not felons. They're not criminal offenders. Traffic ticket. Everyone gets traffic. I got a traffic ticket once. I mean, was going for a $3 Starbucks. I ended up getting a $100 ticket, 5 miles over the speed limit. I was like, really? And it was shot down to 30, but whatever.
I always said Starbucks is expensive.
Yes, it is. That day was very expensive. Yeah. But so that would be one of the things that you would, if you were elected sheriff, that would be one of the things you would remove.
I've always said that will be one of the first things that I would do is take the sheriff's department out of that particular agreement with ICE.
Okay. Some of the other things that you talked about also is, and I see there's a problem with like businesses hiring people. There's ghost employees. There's not enough people to work restaurants and stuff happening all the time. How would you attract and retain qualified, but not just qualified staff, a diverse staff that represents the community? How would you do that?
Sure.
Are there enough people out there to do that with?
Of course there is. And I may get in trouble for saying this, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. We talk about, how low that the unemployment rate is today, okay? And they boast about the fact that, that there's jobs here. But you got to ask yourself, what type of jobs are there, And when you see people at a certain level that they're working 2 jobs and they still can't make ends meet, well, it's good to sit here and boast about the fact that I got jobs, but, they're not making a decent, livable wage on what they're doing.
Do you think the sheriff's department's paying enough for a sheriff?
Nowhere near. And that's been legendary ever since I've been in law enforcement, starting in 1983. Right. But you see, one thing that they would come back and talk about, we did a study, and the study says that, money is not the most important thing. Good work environment, good supervision, good, and they give you a laundry list of all of the goods. And somewhere down toward the middle of the bottom is salary, okay, and benefits. Yes. Which, and I was like, I said, no, I'm a person out here, when I started with the county police department, I was making less than $13,000 a year. So money and salary was important, especially when I started having kids. And I'm like, no. So what I say on that is that, when you look at, and right now I use the City of Atlanta as a comparative agency. The City of Atlanta right now have a waiting list of people trying to get into the city. And what happened was the mayor changed their benefit package there. So Atlanta is one of the highest paid agencies in this area. Gwinnett County is at the bottom. As large and and as good as this county is, right, we're at the bottom, and we got some of the most finest officers and deputies in the nation. These are some of the most finest individuals you'll ever see, ever run across. And I know that there's some bad things that happen from time to time, but for the most part, they deserve more. So in order to get the best, you got to give them the best. So we're going to have to look at these benefit packages out here, what we're paying people.
Is it true when I hear that Gwinnett Police, for example, they train through the police academy these employees or people that would eventually be police officers in Gwinnett, but then all of a sudden after a year or two they leave, and after they get some experience, they get the schooling, they leave and to go to other counties, better paying jobs.
That is true.
So we can't retain them.
We're not, our retention rates is, when you talk about you got over 150 vacancies.
So you have the budget. Supposedly there's budget for it, but you can't fill the budget.
You can't fill it.
So you would think the money's there, you can't fill it, so maybe you should pay a little bit more, reduce the amount of vacancies, and then you probably should be able to fill it.
We could.
Right.
But I think it's going to take more than just a little bit. We're going to have to seriously consider changing what we're looking at as far as the benefit packages.
And these are, like, to me, armed forces are the same way to me. I've heard stories where people, they're in the services and they still might have to get food stamps. They may still have to do other services from the federal government to help them ends meet. They're in harm's way. The sheriff, police, fire, they're all in harm's way. I don't understand why we consistently try to pay them less.
I think we, as a society, is looking at a lot of things socially wrong, okay? We don't take care of who and what we should be taking care of. there's no reason why, a veteran should have to worry about being homeless,
Yes.
or finding affordable housing, or finding good quality health care.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it's not like it's almost a joke. It's almost like they know that it's bad. And
so
yet they
when
don't
we
fix
sit
it.
down, and what gets me is people, man, they want to put up this front showing how patriotic that they are. But yet and still, we got people out here and they want to, oh, it's so sad that we have, vets and police officers out here committing suicide. Well, you know what? What are we doing to change some of the things of this, in addition to the outside pressures that they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis? So you take a person and you put him in theater over there in war, and then he comes back. He's got to worry about, where his family's going to live. Yeah, I mean, we fundamentally have this thing wrong. And, and when we look at, even the healthcare situation, and even for Gwinnett County, and I know I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. In other countries, they take care of the elderly. They make sure that they're taken care of. Here, it's almost like they don't want to, once you're retired, they don't want to take care of you. So they make, your health care so high, and other things, the expenses of it, and it's just like, I put my time in, I've, have served this county or this country, and here we are now, that I need, and there's nobody there for you. So
it's amazing that we constantly do this, not only with our military, but with the police and fire, and even teachers. I mean, these are people that protect us.
That's correct.
And that spend more time with our children than we do.
That's correct.
And yet we don't treat them well enough.
We don't.
So, sorry, we should.
I'm sorry.
It's just like
that's outside of the realms of the sheriff's department, but but it's still real. And another thing too, if I'm elected sheriff, I want to work with the board of commissioners, and if you got people coming into Gwinnett County that wants to develop homes, okay. What's wrong with a certain percentage of those homes being set aside for law enforcement at a reduced rate that we can afford?
That's interesting, because I heard someone else talk about doing that with developers, having them, if they're going to ask for rezoning, higher density, that they should really, because everyone talks about affordable housing, but the real trick is, how do you force that into the marketplace? Because there are expensive places to live, and the property is going to be expensive unless government can do something about it. And the worker that's going to be working your police force in a locality like Buckhead can't live in Buckhead. And they might be coming from Cumming, maybe, or somewhere else. Or somewhere.
I know that they have somewhat of a pilot program like that that's going on over in the city of Atlanta.
Okay.
But, what I'm talking about is, being able to be, more diverse in more different communities. All right. So not just in, an identified area, but anywhere that, that you have a development that, we can look at, getting officers there, because, it's safer. It's a crime deterrent to have either a patrol car or a deputy's car, or just folks knowing that, hey, there's a law enforcement in the community.
Right.
That's worth the money of having security there.
For sure. And most police drive their cars home and stuff.
In Gwinnett County, the police officers do, and most of the not most of the deputies, but the ones that are assigned in certain areas drive their cars.
Okay. I had last about 6-8 months ago, maybe. I had the last year, actually, it was. I spoke to a couple of Gwinnett Superior Court judge candidates, and we talked about technology in the courtroom, how that would really make things work faster, especially if you could do sort of a FaceTime type of deal where you don't have to come down to the court. All we're asking for is a disposition of moving things to a different date. There's no reason to take up court time for that, right?
Okay.
How would technology, the internet, the approach to law enforcement in the past decade, Do you think that the Sheriff's Department has gone far enough with the use of technology, or has it, or has it not? I mean, what would you do there with
one thing? One thing that I did have a discussion with it was about the wait time that attorneys have to have or use at certain times over at the jail waiting to see clients.
Okay.
And part of that is because of the shortage of manpower at the jail or maybe other things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But they talk about a wait time. Some of them has talked about it up to 3 hours, having to wait before they can get in and get the interview of their client. One thing I would like to take a look at as far as technology goes is that if there was a system, a secure system, that we could put a client in front of a camera or whatever it would be, and remote that that interface with their attorney,
Right.
so that the attorney would have a set block of time. At 3:00 on Friday, I know I got a time. Have my candidate, in the pod, so that he can, we can have
the secure conversation.
Have a secure conversation, and I can, do this interview with my client. That's a time saver.
Okay. Now, would that, obviously, there's some complications there for privacy, and whether that recording is deleted later and stuff and not used for law enforcement.
It wouldn't be necessarily a recording. Okay,
Right.
It's not a recording.
So it
it's
wouldn't
just
be
a video
retained.
conference.
Okay. Do you see any other uses, online uses, or do you see more online crime that the Sheriff's Department may have to deal with?
I don't know as far as what the Sheriff's Department itself would be. I would like, take a look and make sure that, we have, up-to-date technology as far as inside of the jails, especially in the courthouse. Courthouses are becoming more of a target for,
Right.
certain things. So, you want to make sure that your technology is up to par there. Technology around the courthouse, so that you can get, more real-time information in the event that you do have an incident either at or around the courthouse. Yeah, I do see an upgraded need for technology, yes.
Okay. It's interesting. I mean, the City of Peachtree Corners, for example, is putting in license ID cameras and also facial recognition cameras, just to be used, to be retained and possibly used in case there was a felony act or something like that within the community. So it is getting more of a cyber, having cameras out there and being able to track things a little bit more online. Fiscally responsible decision making, reducing costly lawsuit liability. That's one of the things that you spoke about. I think.
Yes.
How would you speak to that then, as far as?
Well, I don't know if you looked at the news, but back here a few days ago, Randy Travis was reporting on a case of a lawsuit where a deputy was just arrested by the FBI, and he's being prosecuted federally for excessive force on an inmate, a mentally disabled inmate inside of the jail. One thing that he talked about was that he had checked on the cost, because there's so many. I think right now we're up to about 75 plaintiffs that's involved in lawsuits over there at the Sheriff's Department for either excessive use of force, wrongful death, and if there's some other ones, I don't know what the other titles are, but I do know right about now you got about 75 plaintiffs.
Isn't that a lot?
That's a tremendous number of people.
Yeah.
And,
for a force that has 250 odd people.
Right. So, I think, they got almost 1,000 folks now.
Okay.
But see, here's the deal. When you look at not only the cost that is costing the county attorneys to defend these lawsuits, you also bring in outside attorneys. And Travis reported that he checked back in August. And at the time, back in August, the amount that the county had spent on these lawsuits with outside attorneys was over $500,000. So that's what, 6 months ago, almost 6 months ago. So that tab is rolling. Okay. We spend millions of dollars out here defending these lawsuits. And then if we lose, then you're paying out multiple million dollars to these plaintiffs out here. Right. And it starts from the top. When those lawsuits first started, he did nothing to change the practices of that rapid response team that was operating inside of that jail.
So are you saying possibly training?
Oh,
training?
First of all, it starts with your hiring. Who do you have? Who do you have in charge?
Okay.
As a sheriff, who do I bring in and who do I put in charge?
Okay.
And what is the mindset and the philosophy that we're going to go at? And how do we deal with conflict? And how do we deal with, with people, man, that are combative or mentally challenged in there? When you look at it, probably 85 to 90% of the people, man, that is incarcerated, they have some sort of mental disability. You think about who goes into a jail and start fighting, okay? So, we got to have a better screening process of folks that are going in.
Okay.
If there's services that we need to provide to people, as far as putting them in special areas, we got to train our deputies better with, more CIT training, crisis intervention type training.
Doesn't this also come back to paying more money, to paying the right salary base to attract the right candidates?
It does. But, even to get those salaries up to par and to get the right people in, you're talking about, 3 to 4 years. Okay, so it may take a whole term to get that.
Sure.
But what I'm saying is we have to change the culture of that place immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Day one, I've got to have a plan going in there to how we're going to reduce and how we're going to deal with conflict resolution inside that jail. Mm-hmm. How do we deal with physical force? How do we report physical force? When do we use physical force?
Right.
Okay, and how do we evaluate fairly if we're using proper force? Okay, so I can't, some people will sit there and say, well, you got, it's going to take you time. Well, yeah, you're right. It is going to take time, but I don't have time to sit back and wait until some of these things take care of themselves. We got to have a plan from day one going in the door. What are we going to do?
How long is the sheriff's term?
4 years.
4 years. 4 years sounds like a long time, but it's
in the blink of an eye.
Yes. You'll be like...
Especially when you get our age, man, 4 years go by real quick.
Yeah. Especially when you're on a mission and you want to change things. 4 years may not be enough time to do it.
Well, I plan, hopefully, my plan is to bring the right people in from the start. And, people that I got the confidence that's going to hit the ground running. Yes.
We've been with Kibo Taylor talking about his run for sheriff, his background, where he's grown up, who he is, and his faith. And I'm glad to have you out here.
Thank
Appreciate you coming out. So why don't you, normally I do this when I do candidate interviews, give us a 2 minute elevator speech, if you will. Ask for that vote. Tell us why we need to vote for you.
Sure.
And tell us when the election is, all that, and where they can reach you at.
One more time, man. My name is Kibo Taylor, and I'm running for sheriff of Gwinnett County. The election, I have a primary, and the primary is in May the 19th, 2020, this year, okay? I'm asking I need your support, okay? I need for people that if you believe in what we're talking about and if you want to get behind my campaign, go onto my website, go to my social media pages. If you like it, please repost it, okay? Spread the word out as best as you can. What I tell people is that, if you support me, find me 10 more people. And then ask those 10 people to find me 10 more people. And, it's kind of like the old chain letters, man. We're just going to keep it going. But you can find my information at Kibo for Sheriff, and you spell out for sheriff.com.
And Kibo is Keybo.
Yes, Keybo. Kibo, Keybo Taylor for sheriff.com. Then I'm also on social media. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. Mm-hmm. And I believe you might even be able to find me on Twitter. I'm not real sure about the Twitter.
I know Facebook and Instagram for sure. I tagged you on that one. Great. We've been with Kibo Taylor. I appreciate you coming out, Kibo. Thank you, and good luck with getting the word out and telling your story.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Peachtree Corners Life with Rico Figliolini. You can listen to our live stream on Spreaker every Thursday night at 8:30 p.m. or on demand at iHeartRadio, Spotify, and iTunes. Don't forget to like our Facebook page for notification of our live video streams of the show. Catch our other podcast shows at PeachtreeCornersLife.com.